And the Anything Podcast. I'm Aaron, you're Chris, and
I
here we go.
Uh-oh.
Are you ready?
We are voting you off the island.
Yes. Okay. So the first thing we wanted to talk about is a friend of ours, a mutual friend, we decided was not beneficial to our continued friendship because they're making decisions in their lives that we not only disagree with, but also we're continuing to make those poor decisions to where we're like, we cannot continue to abide by this person's poor decisions. And also being older in life, we both have the experience to know that we're not going to change them. You can't change them. And the best thing to do would be just to vote them off the island, right? Is that essentially?
Yeah, I mean,
Do you
there's
agree with that
a little
statement?
bit more to that,
Yeah.
and that was the fact that, yes, this person came into the group that we had where we were enjoying and how you and I met and other people met, but yeah, this person came into the group and had a couple of issues beforehand, and we're like, yeah, you need to come be part of something that's bigger than you, and enjoy and kind of embrace something so you can make positive changes in your life. All fine and dandy and great, but then you're right, continued to make poor decisions and repeated those poor decisions, which we were kind of trying to warn against, because you're putting not only your child's life in risk, but you're also putting your own life at risk, and you're continuing with these poor decisions. But then not only that, because your influence is, or because of certain things are so negative, your influence has brought other people, including myself, into an issue where I don't want to be part of that, because first of all, you shouldn't be doing that to begin with, because you know my situation, and I'm not going to do anything because you're hitting on me and you want to sleep with me, yet I'm dating somebody else and I refuse to cheat on somebody because that's just not cool. Plus,
Right.
I am very happy with the person I'm with.
Yeah.
And when I brushed it off the first time because, yeah, okay, whatever. But then when you continually do it, then now you're creating a real problem because you're taking it way too far. And that's not fair to me. That's not fair to my girlfriend. And you continue to do that. That's a problem. And then our other friend who originally had a problem is mostly because of the poor decision making
Right.
that she was doing.
For sure. Now, for me, I'm the type of person that I'm a steel vault. If you tell me something, I'm not going to go and tell other people your business. And the good thing about that is I expect that same kind of confidence and trust in you. If I confide in you, that's what friends are for, right? So you're doing people an injustice if you're spreading their business around, which happens all the time. So I must just have this trustworthy demeanor where people confide in me and tell me things. Now, within 5 minutes of meeting this particular person that we're talking about, she was telling me just gross factors of her life, showing me pictures of things that happened to her and confiding in me.
I can understand that aspect because of what had happened. But I'm wondering if it was more sympathetic. Like,
Well, that
you were
too.
trying to get sympathy and trying to play the victim, because once we got to know this person more so, it was purely evident that you're looking for being the victim and you're looking for certain things so you can be more like amassed as the center of attention.
For
type
sure,
issue.
100%. And that's what happened. But I'm the type of person, I was a stranger, confided in me within 30 seconds. So in my mind, I'm all about positivity and being around great people. We have awesome friends. So I thought, well, look, you need to change a pace. You need to get around people who are going to be positive and supportive towards you and help guide you in the right direction and be there for you in a positive way, because that's how we are with each other. So, we have good friends, right? So get out of the negativity cycle that you're in, come around some normal, uplifting people. Maybe it'll wear off on you and your life will change, but it wasn't happening quickly enough and we weren't wearing off. So eventually you have to get to the point, well, we're not going to go down, I'm not going to go negative and start letting this negatively affect my life, which is the same thing that I know you decided. So we had to vote this person off the island, which we've talked about before. But now we didn't tell this person
Well, we
that
voted
we were voting them off the island.
Yeah, but well, first of all, what we did was we voted. I mean, we didn't have a vote. We stopped playing cards for a while.
Yes.
And I mean, the last time we played cards was like 9 months ago. It was a long
It was a
time.
long time.
And so we just played last week, or a week and a half ago. No, about a week and a half ago. We played, which was a lot of fun. I know in the last podcast that we recorded, we talked about playing cards finally again. But yeah, we hadn't played, and every time we had a group chat, and every time somebody tried like starting the group chat, it just was met with resistance. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm gonna actually text our friends individually, or the people who, because it wasn't like them. So I texted both friends who kind of just shut down, and the one person, which was her friend originally, it was started telling me different things and talking about it. And it's like, oh, it makes absolute sense. And you know what? I'm on the same exact page as you.
Yeah.
I talked to the person that we voted off, because I felt bad for her, and I thought that she could use like good people around her, and I'm like, I don't want to cut somebody out without giving them the benefit of the doubt. But you've overextended my welcome, and now you're trying to influence certain things onto me that I have strictly said no to multiple times. And I'm like, I don't want to put myself around that. I like playing with everybody, like with cards and that, but it's the situation where it's like from leaving the table, going into the car and being like, oh, come on, can I go back to your place? I'm like, no.
Right.
And I don't want to deal with that. So when we were discussing that, and that's when she made the decision, she's like, okay, well, I want to talk to you, and then I want to talk to other people who are part of the group. And that's how it ended up happening. And I texted you too beforehand, because because I wanted to know I wanted you to know where I was coming from.
Sure.
And it would put into perspective what our friend was saying. And that's the exact whole thing. So it's like, we vote you off the island.
We did, yeah. Well, see, when people stopped responding in the group text, I thought, well, is it me? Like, are they, you get paranoid, like, are they all texting each other and I'm being cut out? Because it does happen, and it just happened to our friend. Right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So, but the communication was great to where, like, no, it's not you. Yeah. It's this person. What do you think about not inviting them back to cards? But now this person has texted you asking if we played cards by some fluke. How did they know?
Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, so I'll tell you what happened. So yeah, she texted me and said, "Hey, have you played cards lately?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I played cards." I'm like, but here's the thing. So my girlfriend who came to our card night, she posted a picture on Facebook and tagged me. Okay, that's fine and dandy. Yeah. But then she's now friends with our friend.
Yeah.
And so our friend liked it. And so it's going to show up on this person's Facebook feed.
The cat's out of the bag now.
And so it's like you see the card picture, and I'm like, I'm not stupid. I know how Facebook works, and I know how people act. But she said, "Oh yeah, I was at a concert with this other that we play occasionally with. If they come here and there, they're not part of our like core group, but if they come and hang out, it's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't do anything part of the group consistency. But yeah, she texts me, and I'm like, yeah, I played cards the other day. It wasn't part of our group because hey, guess what? You were voted off the island.
Right.
We made a new group.
Yeah, we didn't tell you.
We didn't tell you, and But the thing is, it's also, why didn't we tell her?
Yes.
So I know why I didn't tell her, and I'll say that after. But why didn't you tell her? Why don't the rest of us tell her?
Well, at that point, I was part of the decision, but I don't have any communication with her any longer. Mm-hmm. And I try to be an honest person in life where even if I think something might be awkward or we have feelings that arise of awkwardness. Like it feels to me telling someone, look, you're the smelly kid on the bus and we're voting you off the island. It's
we're voting you off the bus. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Yeah. We don't want to tell you, but I think that I have to get over those thoughts in my head that it's going to be an awkward conversation and avoid it and just be honest, because who knows how they're going to feel anyway. And we can't, you know, I always try to decide on honesty is the best policy. And normally, it's become a fault where people are like, you're a fucking jerk because I'm straight up with them. And I don't, maybe I have to work on my nuance, but at that point I had not been in contact with her in months. So I didn't feel like I should just be like, oh, by the way, you know, we're not invited to cards or anymore. We're moving on because you make horrible decisions and we're not going to watch this burning ship go down.
Yeah, but that's the brutally honest point. There's varying truths in there that you can say. For me, though, the reason why I didn't say anything, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I was playing cards with a different group, which technically is true, but it's also a very, very fine line between the lie.
A different group is not you.
Yeah, it's just you're not part of our group. We're a different group now. Right. We have different people now playing. A couple different. So yeah, it's no. I didn't want to say anything because I know that background of somebody, and I don't want it to be detrimental to. Them trying to get over certain things in their past.
Right.
I do agree with the honesty is the best policy, but I also don't want to be the person that says anything
right.
and have backlash elsewhere or somebody trying to start something by doing it.
Yep.
And, so it's that part's a real pain in the ass because you really have to play this fine line because one, she could be like, trying to start shit with you, other people in the group, or going to like my girlfriend or other people.
Yeah.
And it's like, and the problem is this person, you can't discount anything because every realm of possibility could happen.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't need to deal with that. I never asked for that. Mm-hmm. And now you're going to start crap because you got voted out because of the stupid shit that you were doing.
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense.
No.
And I mean, I get that you're in a life that you won't escape from or choose not to escape from.
Well, that's what the problem was.
And, if you're not, you can only take somebody so far, and you can only extend that olive branch or that hand so long until you have to say we got to cut you because you're not going to do anything that's going to be better for us or me or you. You're just staying at the same point, and instead of us trying to pull you forward, you're trying to pull backward, which means you're like for me, she's trying to sleep with me, and I'm like, no, and I don't want to go, I don't want to be around that. It's not fair for me, and it's not fair for my girlfriend in any way, shape, or form. And so I was very happy when our other friends said the same exact thing, and I'm like, okay, great, because I saw this as a great way to say, yes, let us restart. Let us go to where we were. We were happy. We were having fun. It was a good time. We always enjoyed. Maybe one day we'll be able to play cards on a podcast. And just have a couple hour podcast game of Cards Against Humanity, which would be freaking awesome.
It'd be super fun.
But we'll see.
But just not with her. And I know you just have to let that person go.
Yeah.
And you expect, well, hey, have you played cards? They don't know. There's another person that we stopped inviting over to our friend's house because she would come over and start a fight with her significant other every time. Mm-hmm. And
this is not a cards game, is it?
It was a cards. But this was before you. I don't know how I don't know. Because I've been friends with our mutual friend for a long time.
Yeah. And I met her at a networking event.
That's right, yeah.
And that was 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
So it was a couple years now. But yeah, we met at a networking event, and then
friendships change.
You know our friend.
Yeah.
She likes to enjoy the fine things in life, and
Yeah.
by fine things I mean men.
Dudes, yeah. Dudes, all day dudes.
So we met
Yeah.
at a networking event, and she texts me like right after. We were talking for a while. She's like, "Hey, you want to come over?" I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Sure, why not?" So I come over, and then we're hanging out, having a good time. And then she's like, "Hey, you want to come over to Cards?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I love Cards Against Humanity." And that's really how it started.
Yep.
So it was a lot of fun that way.
So I met her about 10 years ago with yoga. A
Okay.
friend of mine was like, "Hey, I'm doing yoga."
Oh, by the way, this isn't the person we're talking about now is not the one that was voted
No,
off the island.
They are the island.
We just want to keep certain names protected for our friends because they just don't. I don't know. We never asked them, and so we're kind of keeping it somewhat concealed. So maybe we can say A, B, C, D, and label them that way.
But this person is the island. So I met her because I was convinced to start doing yoga, which I'm glad that I did. And I was coerced by chicks in yoga pants. Why wouldn't you go? Okay. So then we went to our friend's house, and I realized that she's an awesome person who's in a band. I really like music. Is in a band, is a positive person, has a lot going on. Was doing yoga, and I just became friends with her. She started inviting us over to parties. You know, we would go over there and just hang out. And then this whirlwind of Cards Against Humanity came out, and we can pause. You want to pause?
No, keep going.
All right.
You can talk.
All right. So, to get back on track, I had two issues with the person that we voted off the island. The first issue is that they're making horrible decisions. And if you're making horrible decisions for yourself, that's one thing. And we try to get you to be a positive person and make the correct choices. That's one thing. If you can't make correct choices for yourself and you start to become around people who are, you know, maybe making better choices for themselves than you are, and that's not wearing off on you and you're not making any progress, that's one thing. But also this person has a child. And my bigger issue is childhood development, where the decisions that this person is making also affect a significant small child. So that's where my second thing comes in. So now that you're back,
yes.
we'll pivot.
But, hold on. Well, we're going to quickly pivot differently because of what had just happened now. So, yes, you hear my dog barking in the background because our studio is called Studio Underground, which is in my basement currently because why not? So, yeah, we had right now, and keep your point because your point's going to be really good, what we could talk about. But right now, it's September. We're recording this September 20th. It's obviously going to go live probably about 6 or 7 weeks from now because
it's September 20th at 6:20. Do you know where your children are?
Yeah. But as I was saying, so we're going to record this. You'll get this right around election time. And that's what's coming out right now is all these people, because it's local elections. So all these people are coming by and ringing your doorbell at the most annoying times because we're recording a podcast. And when you ring my doorbell, my dog is going to bark at you and I'm going to get angry. But the problem is these people that are running for the stupidest office as possible. And it's like, I don't care. Like your town the town accountant. I don't care who does the fucking accounting because all you have to do is put numbers into the software and the software does everything for you today. And it's like, everything has to be accounted for. Yes. But I don't care about, because you don't make policy. The people I like talking to are the policymakers. And the problem is, all the people that come by to the door are just their representative people. They're not even like them. They don't even. So if you want to have a real conversation with them and talk about real policies, and because whether you want to admit it or not, but local politicians are going to be the people that affect you the most. Then it goes statewide, then it goes nationally. Yeah. So everybody who's pissed off at President Trump, guess what? A lot of the policies that they make and he makes aren't going to affect you really one bit for the most part. But your local lawmakers' decisions can have a significant impact on you. So you should be pretty well informed what's going on locally and what's happening locally. So that's my little plug for people, because like I said, this is probably going to be around election time when this posts. But the most annoying is these people that come, and I don't want to talk to you when you have stupid shit that makes no, I don't care about half of the things because you don't have any real significant impact on policy. I want to talk to the actual people who want to make policy or take away policy regulations or whatever it might be, and talk to those people and actually who's running. I don't give a shit about anybody else. Sorry, that's my little rant because it's just been happening so much the last week. It's so annoying. But back to our friend.
Well, so the first issue is this making horrible decisions for herself, which is one thing. As a friend, you care about people. You want them to be happy and healthy, right?
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
So that's one thing. And if that person didn't have a child, it's a different story. But what I'm really concerned with these days is childhood development. And I think it's because I've said this before. My mom passed away when I was 21, was sick from the time I was 10 years old. I've got younger brothers. And I'm not a parent, but it was enough for me to realize I have other people in my life that I love and care about, and you want the best for them, right? And over the years, now that my friends over the years have had children, and I get to see the different parenting techniques and things, you learn a thing or two, right? And again, I'm not a parent, but I've learned some things, right? So now that I'm seeing this person who has a child who, in my opinion, is a rookie, making rookie decisions or just making horrible decisions, I was more concerned about the development of the child who, here's my issue. One, I really don't like parents who bad talk their children, who say things like, oh, they're horrible and they're such a brat, even if it's just in jest, which some of them aren't, but.
Well, okay, so that's a fine line.
It is.
And it's about variance, because I am a parent.
Yeah.
And I will say my kid's a pain in the ass.
Right.
But that's because at times she's a pain in the ass. She's a child. She's growing up. But I'm not going to say she's a pain. I don't stick to that all the time.
Right.
It's like when she's actually being a real pain in the ass.
Sure.
There's variances there. But I mean, that's what you expect with everybody. You know, if you're dating somebody, you're going to get into a fight with your significant other, and you're going to say, you know, you're going to probably be reacting emotionally.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes you could be like making a joke and this, that, and the other thing. So yes, I don't think saying certain things to other people, because they all get it if they're parents, they understand.
Sure.
But it's if you constantly say it and you constantly mean it,
That's what happens.
that's where there's a real problem, because not only are you talking down about your child or another person in general, but you're wiring your brain to think that way and act that way, and then you're going to emulate that when you're talking to said person, whether it is your child or another person just in general.
That's exactly it. So the image that this girl or our friend, whatever you want to call her, this woman.
I would just say acquaintance at this point
acquaintance, yes. That was in our orbit for a while. The image of her child that she had painted to me.
Wait, does that mean she's a Muamua?
She
Because
definitely is.
she came in for a little while and then slung-shot herself back out?
We're going to call her a Muamua from now
All
on.
right.
Is that how you pronounce it? A Muamua?
A Muamua, yes.
Okay, so
a
Muamua. Yeah.
is it. Okay, so whenever you hear us talking about a Muamua, unless we're actually talking about the real legit space object that came in, and I think they just found a new one or something. Side note, but I don't know what that means. Is that a Muamuai?
Probably.
But yes, every time we talk about this person, we're going to reference her as a Muamua,
All right,
because she came into our solar system and our orbit for such probably the same amount of time that it actually
enough
happened.
to get a sense of it and then took off.
Because think of the timeline, because isn't the timeline pretty much on point of when she came in is when we noticed the Muamua, and then it had its heightened peak, and then all of a sudden it got slung shot out.
That's exactly what happened. It's for real.
So yes, If you guys knew our group, or you'd probably really find it really
That's
funny.
hilarious.
But yeah, so we're gonna reference her as a Mua Mua from now on, just so it makes sense for everybody.
Well, Amuamua had painted this picture of how horrible her kid was to me. Like, oh my goodness, he won't sit still and he's such a brat. He runs around and blah, 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 blah.
So, in other words, a child.
Well, that's the whole thing. So
Because-
then she asked me if I wanted to go to the local fair, right? And me having another issue where I just can't say no to people, I went, right? And I went with her.
Hold on. Let's talk about first what fair, because there's so many fairs and festivals in our area.
It was a county fair.
Okay.
Right. So we went to the county fair and she brings the boy. The boy is a normal 6-year-old boy, had a nice shirt on. He sat down. I'm expecting like problem child, like, woo, woo, oh my, and like ADHD hyperactive, because that's the way she described him. Mm-hmm. When I meet the kid, had a nice haircut.
Yeah, but is he on Ritalin or
the other one? He seemed normal. Like, he didn't seem doped up or anything. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but usually some kids that are medicated, you can sometimes tell that they're medicated.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't seem medicated. He came over, sat down, was interested in playing his little video game. Mm-hmm. Now, here's where the issue was. He had this little video game. When we got to the county fair, she wasn't asserting control of being a parent. Like, we're at the fair now. Let's take the video game away, put it away. You'll be able to play it later. Mm. But she kept making this horrible impression of him. He was just a normal boy. He wanted to play with normal kids. We went and had a great time. We saw all the things. And, I was a little boy at one time in my life too, so I could relate to him better than, a female could. Mm-hmm. So we just had a blast, and he was a normal kid. And I was so upset with her for painting this picture of problem child, and all he needed was a little bit of attention. We did a whole bunch of stuff, and it was fun. Now, here's where I'm going with this. I've read 2 different articles about 2 different actresses in Hollywood that are making decisions for their kids that are subjective. One of them was about letting the 5 or 6-year-old boy wear a dress to school and wear makeup to school. And you brought up a really good point that you texted me back. I read your text. The great point that you made was not whether a boy should be wearing a dress to school or not. That's subjective. But it's bullying.
Yeah.
So this kid that we're talking about, our friend's kid, when we went to the fair, was playing with about 20 kids, right? There's a whole bunch of kids there. And he was a little bit overexcited because I could tell that he had not been around a group of kids. He didn't, he just wanted to play with these kids. And he was a little bit more excited, enthusiastic than the rest of the kids. Well, here's a girl with one arm who's making fun of him when he said his name. And this is where kids can just be outright nasty. She was calling him something. I forget what she was making fun of, but I wanted to be like...
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the problem. When you look at bullying, because you said she's got one arm, so she has a lot of things that she has to overcome, and she has to grow as a little person as well, too. And then, she's probably been picked on quite a bit. And that's the whole thing about bullying. Like, no matter what, bullying happens all of the time at every age. Yep. And it's not that it's horrible or not, and like it needs to be outlawed or not. It needs to be, addressed in a specific way. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, bullying can go many different ways on a full spectrum. It can go where it's very detrimental to the person who is being bullied.
Right.
But it also can make that same individual who's being bullied very, very strong because they can say, you know what, I'm not going to take this shit anymore.
Right.
And then they can go off and do whatever they want to do, maybe become their best self.
Right.
So there's this variance between, and it's up to it's each individual whether it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing for them. And the thing is, nobody really knows.
No.
Especially when it's the younger they are.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Did you ever see Daddy's Home with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell?
No, that's one I haven't seen.
Okay. It's a really, really funny movie. Highly suggest going to see it. But there's a scene where it's a daddy-daughter dance. And quick synopsis of this, if you haven't watched it, well, too bad. I don't care if it's a spoiler or not. But so Will Ferrell is a stepdad and Mark Wahlberg is the actual dad. he's like Mark Wahlberg's like the cool, big guy. Always things work in his favor. Will Ferrell is supposed to be kind of like the geek, takes things a little too far, very sensitive type person, at least characters in the movie. And so he was really excited to be able to take his stepdaughter to the daddy-daughter dance. And, you know, there was this, obviously, like every movie, there's always these issues and things that are going on. And all of a sudden, you know, they both piss off the mother in this. And so they're trying to get everything to work out right. And then they come together as parents, which is Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell. And they become friends in it. And so they go to the dance, but like right when they get there, the boy was at the dance too, and the girl was making fun of him, and it was alluded earlier that he had a bully and she was picking on him, but they never knew it was a girl. And so they were talking and saying, oh, it's probably because she likes him. And she's like, no, that's not. But he they did certain things, and it was really funny because they thought the bully was a guy. So they're like,
Yeah.
well, if they bully you, you know, kick him in the balls.
Right.
And so he's a little kid and he doesn't understand. And they didn't know because it's that whole lack of communication, because, you know, children and adults just don't understand each other when they're talking about certain things. So it's like you really got to dig in if you really want to find it. And so they played it out really well in terms of how they got the difference between the two. So it was really great that way. But yeah, so he takes care of that, and there's this huge like little hoopla going on, and then everything kind of settles out, and they start like everybody starts dancing and have a good time. And so they back up into each other, and she kind of gives like this like little look like, I'm gonna, you know, do something. And he just starts dancing, and then she's like, okay, and she starts dancing, and it's like it's kind of over with at that point. But that's the whole thing. It's like when bullying happens, you know, you need to find out how to take care of it and how to figure it out, because yes, it can be very detrimental to people, where it can, you know, it can cause really bad feelings towards a certain individual who was bullied, meaning they could get, you know, they could form some sort of mental illness, like you know, anorexia or bulimia, or, you know, they could get some sort of physical issue with themselves. Maybe they think they're too fat, maybe they don't think they have a butt,
Right.
And they get ass implants or something like that. So there's a lot of things in terms of that. But then, you know, there could be other people who just say like, all right, whatever, and they stand up, and then, you know, they might find out that person was bullied themselves, and that's the only way. Maybe there was problems at home.
Yeah, that's
maybe there's
exactly it.
issues. I mean, there's always an underlying issue
For sure.
and it's usually like a dominance and like a sense of control and all this stuff. But I mean, there's obviously a lot more. That's just generalizing it. But yeah, you usually find out something about that person. They were either bullied, they were, you know, at home. That's usually what goes on. And so maybe they can become friends, and you know, things go a different way. Maybe they actually maybe that person who was bullied brings them back, and instead of being a bully now, they're a good person.
Right.
And, you know, they help other people. So it's, you know, there's this huge web of how it interacts. But then you also have the other people who are like, fuck, like the guy will be like, fuck you, and then go on and do amazing things. And they can when they look back at it, they'll attribute it to the fact that they were bullied, and they're like, "I'm never going to, you know, I'm going to succeed, even though you're saying I'm a piece of shit or something, or whatever it might be." So, and that's the whole thing. It's a variance degrees, but the problem is everybody focuses on these negative portions of it, which yes, are absolutely horrible, because it can cause mental illness, it can cause hospitalization, and can cause suicide. And so, yes, there's a real problem when you're on that side of the spectrum.
Right.
But when you're on the other side of the spectrum, you know, is Elon Musk, is he partly where he is because he was bullied?
Right.
You know, is Bill Gates partly where he is because he was bullied? Is Mark Zuckerberg partly where he is because he was bullied? Who knows? I mean, I don't know, because I've never talked to these people or
Right.
But they could have been bullied, and then all of a sudden they've gone on to do great
Right.
things. So yeah,
Or was it an albatross? Did that hold them back and they just overcame? Would they have been that much more successful if they didn't have bullied?
Yeah.
Who can tell?
Exactly.
That's the whole thing. Well, the thing that was interesting to me watching the girl who had one arm and I wouldn't say it was bullying. She just teased him a little bit because, again, the boy had not been around children enough to where he fully knew, like, I'm in a group of kids, and he was just a little bit more unruly than a normal, well, what is normal, but he was a little bit more overexcited because I could tell he had not had the exposure that these other kids could have had with their playing with each other, and I could tell that he was kind of
But
neglected
he's
in that
also,
way.
well, it's not just that. He's also a boy.
Yeah.
I don't know anything really about his home life besides a small certain amount of things, which I don't even know.
Yeah.
To
Well,
be
I could
honest,
just tell.
but
So there was
be-
like 20 kids playing, and he was just not used to all playing with a group. And you could tell that the other kids were more used to playing in a group than he was, which is no big deal. But the thing that was interesting to me was that how ruthless kids could be. And I wouldn't even say it was bullying. They were just teasing. The one girl was just teasing him because he kept saying he's obsessed with this video game. And he kept saying this saying from a video game over and over again.
Yeah,
and then
most kids do that too.
She teased the opposite of it. Instead of calling him powerful, she called him like silly or something. And it just was amazing. I'm like, you have one arm. Like, nobody's teasing you about your one arm. Why are you teasing him about his little bit of saying?
And that's the whole
how
thing.
ruthless they are.
Yeah, but you're looking at it on the surface and
course.
you're seeing what's
Yeah.
there. But behind the scenes,
Yep.
she could have been bullied.
Of course,
quite
I'm
a
sure
bit.
that-
And
yeah.
she also that could be a group of children that she was part of and knew very well already.
No, they were just random kids from the fair
But
that we
then-
were at. Like,
but
it was
then
a
there's
little
also-
play area for
okay.
them. But more importantly is, like, kids can be ruthless, right?
Yeah, all
So
kids are, yeah.
there's
absolutely.
got to be a difference between teasing and straight up bullying, like beating the crap out of someone repeatedly, demeaning them, telling them the word, like a straight up bully, and teasing someone, right? And there's different levels of bullying. There's teasing, but kids are ruthless, right? So to me, the issue of sending your kid to school that's a boy that's against social norms in a dress, well, good for you. The lesson there was that be proud of who you are. Walk with confidence no matter what you do. If you're a young boy who wants to wear a dress to school, well, be confident in doing that. That was the lesson that this actress wanted her kid to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can just say it's Megan Fox because it's an article that's
Well,
published.
So in that way, like, the development is not more whether the kid should be wearing a dress. That's subjective, but the bullying that they face at school from that, and whether that they can overcome that bullying, which, maybe there wouldn't be any bullying in today's day and age, but it is a problem. So
there's always going to be bullying no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just children. Think of like at work. You have certain people that you have a group dynamic. Whenever there's a group, there's always going to be somebody who's, going to make fun of somebody else or
Right.
tease them or straight up bully them. So it's always prevalent somewhere.
it happened to me.
Yeah, even in group. What are you taught when?
At my work, when I got out of training, there was a
Okay, so
certain thing that I was never taught to do on the computer that was either, neglected or overlooked in the training. So I got out onto the floor at my job, and I didn't do the specific thing, coding a certain way in the computer system. And I got a message from the coworker. I did my job and I did what I was supposed to do because I did this person's job for them, and I
just didn't do the TPS
I got it.
report right.
I didn't do the TPS report right. That's exactly it. I got a message from this person that said, if you can't do this TPS report right, then find an adult who can do it for you. And I was like,
I'd be like, great,
Yeah.
guess what?
Yeah.
You're doing it for me now.
I've been out
Thanks.
of training for one day. I was never taught to do this. I didn't know that I had to do this, and I did what I was supposed to do for you. And then I get this message from you telling me that if I'm not competent to do this, to find an adult, and I don't even know you. Like, am I going to have an HR issue with this person already? And it turned out that this person was an adult bully, had been bullying these people, right? In my group, in my little team.
So it was Biff Tanner.
It definitely was a fat Biff, right? It was that's the whole thing. Like, this
Yes.
person thinks like you have, like, dude, who do you think you are? You got a giant pot belly, and like you're intelligent in
So
some
he's going to be
ways.
like, I'm shoving you around.
that's
Be like,
exactly it.
do my work. No,
Well-
at that point, I would have emailed him back and be like, well, guess what? If you know how to do it, I'll make sure you get it done then.
Well, no, well, the whole thing is like I've been out of training for one day. I don't know you, and is this what kind of like this is how you treat a coworker you don't even know? So every interaction for the past month after that I had with this person had been the same thing. I was met with if I needed to call them about something or perform function of my job when I had to interact with this person, I was met with negativity. So finally, I don't care who you are. And we're all coworkers, right? So finally, I had to stand up and say to this person in front of all of our coworkers, every interaction that I've had with you has been negative. We're all coworkers, and we all need to get along. Mm-hmm. Why are you doing this? So for the rest of the day, I got messages from 3 or 4 other coworkers that I am so glad you stuck up to this person. They bullied me.
Yeah.
Most people just pass it off. Well, this is just their personality. But we're all adults now. We're in our 30s. You shouldn't be acting like this.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's like bullies will always be there, and it doesn't matter what age. I mean, you go to a retirement home, and there's probably bullies
probably a
there.
bully
You
there.
know, it's like, give me your Jello. My teeth are hurting.
It's the arrogance that this person thought that they were better than everyone else.
Yeah,
we're all
that's-
coworkers. Like, you're not better than anyone, and you're not worse than anyone. You're just a human being.
Yeah,
Like,
we're all equal.
yeah, and we all have skills and defects. Like, well, get out of it. And I don't like that arrogance to where I'm better than you.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I found out that this person went to the same school that I went to. Was from the same town. Like, what? We're from the same place, dude. Like, I don't know.
But
I'm
you got to
getting
find
angry
out,
about the
though,
bullies.
beforehand and see, all right, well, what caused this person to be a bully? And it's probably bad home life or they were bullied.
Both, definitely.
So-
Well, the funny thing is, you know what? About 4 months down the line, I actually started talking to this person. They're very interesting. They had been to South Korea. They had been to Australia. They had one of the issues that I'm having in the local area that we live in is a lot of the people I know have grown up here. They've never left this tiny little area, and they have a very small world view.
They live
And
in 1 square
They do.
mile, literally.
And they may have traveled. Some of them have traveled on maybe a vacation and have been to,
Yeah, but that
on a
doesn't
cruise. It doesn't really count. Like, it's not enough to where they've lived somewhere else. Now,
No, I mean, not even if you don't live somewhere else. It's just that your world view is literally a square mile because
It is.
you grew up there. You may have moved once or twice, but down the street.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you lived by yourself, you live down the street from where you grew up.
Yeah.
So it's like your world view is so small that you're living in a bubble. And yes, you could go out into the world and see the world when traveling, but if you
Yes.
only travel like here or there,
yeah.
you're not going to get the
Yeah.
full feel because you're not going to see everything. You're not going to be able to immerse yourself into the area you're in. And I mean, like cruises, you're usually at a stop for
Yeah.
a day, maybe a day and a half, but you don't, like, if you go to the Bahamas, you can go one spot here, like Nassau and Freeport, and then you could go to like Cozumel and maybe like Grand Turk or something, but you're not going to really truly get into the culture
Right.
unless you set yourself up to be able to do that, where you could do that in a matter of some hours while you're on the island.
Yep.
But you can't fully comprehend that or understand that. So you're stuck in this square mile viewpoint of the world when you don't understand. So like we're in Western New York, so we understand Western New York. But if you go down to West Virginia and you go to Ohio and you go to these areas that have been devastated in the Central America, Central U.S., where it was huge industry, and then they've been wiped out because of automation, jobs going overseas, this, that, and the other thing. You know, they're hurting, and you don't understand that. You don't see that. Then you go to, you know, maybe down south into, you know, parts of Florida, and you don't understand what's going on there. You go into Texas, or you go into, you know, there's each place is different, even in the United States.
For sure. And that's, so for me, I moved out. I only moved one state away. I moved one state away for 3 years. But it was enough for me to get into a new environment where your daily routine is different. You don't have you have to make new friends. You have to, all of a sudden you're self-reliant. There's nobody there. And even if I would have moved, even though it was only one state away, just the experience of packing up everything that I knew.
One state away, though, could be 600 miles.
Right.
So, I mean, you could be going to like Massachusetts or Vermont.
It was
which
far
is
enough.
Pretty far.
Yeah, mine is a 5-hour drive.
Yeah, it's still far.
But you're leaving everything that you know and everything you grew up with. Then I did a little bit of traveling the next summer after I moved away. I got an opportunity to just go door to door doing a door-to-door salesman, which is a whole other story.
Oh, what I just ranted about a little bit ago.
Yeah. Oh, exactly it. Like I was one of those people. But it just leaving everything that I knew and getting into a new environment was impactful enough for me to realize that the world is a big place. I can't imagine how my view of the world would be if I would have moved to like India or something and be in a completely different culture. I only moved a state away where people have a different accent. You know, that was weird enough. Well, then coming back, but it opened my eyes to be perceptive to other things in the world, that the world is a big place and that there's different ways of thinking about things, a different style of life. When I come back here, these people have been doing the same routine and going to the same, they know all the same people. It's hard to talk about with them a different worldview. Well, this person that I met at work that grew up in the same town that turned out to be a bully at first was very interesting because they're very intelligent and they'd been traveled. And I thought, what's South Korea like? What's Australia like? What's Belgium like? And I could have a conversation on that level. And they were very intelligent. And I think that's why they had the air of superiority.
No,
in my work area, looking at all these people who've never been anywhere.
I don't know if I believe that one, only because usually when you're traveling and you're in certain areas, it's more humbling.
That's what I thought.
So you see the world, and you see, especially when you go into other areas. I mean, South Korea, depending on where you are in South Korea, it can be like a cornfield of you know, nothing. But then you can go to Seoul.
I think it was in Seoul.
I think it's Seoul, right?
I don't know.
Something. I don't know. I haven't been there, but
right.
It's like a technological achievement.
That's what he said.
That city.
He said they're far ahead of us.
Oh yeah, I mean their Wi-Fi, like the Wi-Fi and the cell phone signals. It's like we're behind in the Wi-Fi amount, like 110 from Spectrum crap internet. You know, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, you should be getting, everything should be like fiber optic where you're getting gigabits.
It was just the quality of life there.
But
he's like, they don't allow homeless people. They have medical coverage, like common sense things.
Well, but not only that, but I mean, what was the other place? Australia. So like you go to Australia and you see everything that's going on there. And I mean, there's a lot of different built up cities, but then there's a lot of nothing too.
Yeah.
And it's usually traveling humbles you.
Right.
But you could also travel and go to the beach. And like I could go to Cuba and stay at the beach and be like, oh yeah, I went to Cuba. How was it? Oh, it was fantastic. I laid at the beach. The people are great. The cars were old. But you didn't really go in and see the culture. You didn't really go in and experience what life is truly like for people of Cuba. And so that could be too. You know, you could go to Australia and go to the Great Barrier Reef and say, oh, I was in Australia. It was great. And this, that, and the other thing. The people are really cool, which, you know, I'm sure that they really are. I mean, I know quite a few Australians and talked with quite a few, and they're awesome people. But I mean, that's the whole thing. Usually when you travel to other spots, you're humbling up because you realize that what your preconceived notion of that area may be is not true.
Right.
And then you realize, oh, these people are trying to do the same thing as me. All they want to do is get by. They want good things for themselves. They want to be able to enjoy life, and they're working hard to try to achieve it. Yes, there's certain people out there that cause problems and this, that, and the other thing, but it's very few and far between. I mean, ultimately, this is the safest time we've ever been living. And to go to other places, I mean, you could go to, like, so I drive through Uber and Lyft, and I've had people from all over the world that I've driven, including people from like Iraq, Afghanistan, Middle East, war-torn countries and that. And I talk to them, and they're like, oh, do you want to ever, or like, we were talking about traveling, and they're like, oh, would you ever go to Afghanistan? I'm like, yeah, why not? I'd like to go there. I'd like to see what it's all about. I'd like to experience the culture and that. And I think they were taken aback a little bit because they probably expected me to say, no, I don't want to go there. But it's like, yeah, I would go there. I would go experience what it's like. I mean, I would try to stay away from certain areas where, you know, there could be real problems. But the rest of the area is going to be gorgeous and beautiful, and you get to see a lot of different things and really understand what that culture's like. But that's the whole thing too. Like when I talked to them, it was completely different from anything, any preconceived notion you get listening to the media. And that was the big thing too, because the media portrays certain areas to be, oh, that's bad. You don't want to go there. Oh, you don't. But if you
don't
go out
to Juarez, Mexico, they'll cut your head off. That's what I hear.
Yeah, but that's
I talked to a dude from Juarez. He's like, it's stay in the main areas. It's dangerous. There's cartel, but you're not going to get your head lopped off during the day if you stay in the normal.
Yeah, not only that though, mostly it's cartel on cartel violence.
It is, yeah.
So like, yeah, there's issues at times, but you know, you could be also, you don't know what that person or group is doing.
Get shot in downtown Buffalo. You're not.
Yeah, and that's what I was just gonna say. Like, you could go to outside the world or outside the U.S. and watch their news, and they'll be like, "Oh, don't go to the U.S. There's a travel ban to the U.S. or a travel warning to the U.S. because there's mass shootings and all this hysteria and all that." And it's like, do you really feel unsafe going around in the U.S. anywhere? Right. Like, I don't mind where I'll drive in like some sticky situational spots. For some people, they might think that, but actuality, you know, it's not really that bad. There's certain spots, okay, but you know, for the most part.
Well, yeah. Well, what's interesting to me is the worldview that people have, and yeah, the worldview is something. I was able to find common ground with this bully at my work, and once I actually was able to find this common ground with him, now, you know, his attitude has changed. One, because I said something, but two, and then we're able to find common ground, and you know, now we get along.
And that's the whole thing. It's like, there's so much bickering and bullshit going on in the world today, where it's like, oh, I'm going to scroll through your Facebook and find something I don't like or I get offended by it, and then I'm going to blast it. And then I feel like I am woke and superior and making issues with you and trying to get social gain with other people. And it's like, that's not how you need to go about it. Why can't you just instead look for the good in people? Like, you were brought together for a reason. So why don't you think of a way or find that common ground? And then instead of you being two separate tribes based on one little issue, you're together and you're creating a bigger tribe that now is on common ground instead of something that's divisive because you just have an opposing viewpoint than I do. Which makes no sense.
Exactly.
And that's the major issue I have when it comes to a lot of things. I'd rather talk out issues and understand where you're coming from and have a compassion or sympathetic way of looking at it, where I can look at somebody and say, you have a different viewpoint than I do. That's cool. This is my viewpoint,
right? But
we could still get along. Because think of it, the one thing I always resort back to, it's like, well, you have two people, and they both want the same. I mean, they both want the same thing. They're both walking in life the same way. And they have a lot of commonalities, but there's one giant sticking point that they have that's not even probably a big point. It's probably even beyond their control.
Yeah.
And they don't see eye to eye on that one little thing. And because of that, they will not speak to each other. They won't look to each other. They're like essentially at war with each other.
Yeah.
And if they just looked at, or if they just started finding that common ground, maybe they both did the same type of work. And maybe this person got so far in their work, but they weren't able to complete it because they didn't have the knowledge or the know-how or the ability to finish it because they were lacking some key issue or key thing right there. And let's say the other person had that same exact issue where they were doing the opposite side. They had the key and but they didn't have the ability to go about it. And then if they would have gotten together, instead of being at war with each other, they would have gotten together, and then they both would have been able to complete their lifelong goal or goal of whatever it might have been, instead of being so separate from each other and not finishing their goals, their work together. And that's the biggest thing I always say. It's like, what if that was the person who could help excel you to finish what you started or finish what you wanted. So you always do, instead, try looking at it, the fear of missing out. Like, why, the fear of missing out is a real thing. So why not try and transition, be like, oh, this person might have it. They might not. I mean, let's be real. I mean, realistically, if you're trying to find a cure to cancer and you got so far on this research, and this research you got so far, but if you intertwine them, hey, guess what? You'd win. I'm not saying something, it could be anything, but like, that's the whole thing. It's like, why can't we just like get around and find the commonalities we have and then just say, hey, you know what? You have this viewpoint, I have this viewpoint. We can still get along. That's cool.
It's funny you mentioned that, because now that I'm getting I think, am I middle-aged now? Is that what I'm considered at 39? Is that middle-aged?
Sure.
I don't know what the threshold is. Am I a millennial? I don't think I'm a millennial. I think I'm Generation X. But anyway, so what I've been thinking about is humanity in general, right? Like just the bulk of what human beings are, like what our function is on the planet Earth. And what's interesting to me is I was scrolling through this post on a website that I go to, and they're talking about new technology, about submarine technology, right? About how certain superpowers have these capability to launch a first strike and just all this thing. I could not help, and I've talked about this before, about the opposable thumbs. I could not help thinking all of the amount of time and technology and human resources and energy that goes into building these stealth carriers and stealth weapons and stealth submarines and stealth missiles. It's the cutting edge of human technology, but it's used for destruction.
Well, on militaristic ways,
Right.
yes, but
Yeah.
not necessarily on cutting edge and medical advancements or or energy advancements.
Well, usually they're all usually intertwined. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's one aspect. If you're talking about missiles or stealth technology or defensive technology or whatever it might be, that's one aspect of technology. There's also technological advancements medically, maybe pharmaceutical, maybe the ability to do certain procedures.
Yeah.
Then there's different technology when it comes to like self-driving
Well, that's my
autonomous
point.
vehicles.
So
there's a whole realm of technology
Well,
that's on the cutting edge. You can't say though that militaristic is the cutting edge. It's only one aspect of all technology that's around.
That's my whole point. So think of the energy and the intellectual energy and resources that were put into developing all the bulk of these systems. Think of the energy that was taken in human ingenuity to make these. If that would have been put into curing diseases or any other kind of technology except for making something that can destroy, right?
Yeah, but you know why we're doing that, right?
Of course.
First of all, if it wasn't for this ingenuity in terms of protection, self-protection, and country protection, or however you want to look at it, then we wouldn't have separated ourselves from nature, and there'd still be threats out there. But then we also are preparing for the alien war.
Okay. But
So-
your point that what you just said is we need to find common ground with everyone around the world. That's what we need to be doing. We
I
don't
think
need
we
to
have common ground in the fact that we're breathing the same air,
be right.
that we're living on the same planet,
We do.
that we're, there's all these things that
Right.
and if you it's funny because if you listen to Reagan's speech back in, I don't know, the 70s or whatever it was, when he was speaking and he said, maybe we need an ancient, or we need an alien civilization to come and like come down on this planet. And the problem is all the people who believe in aliens thought, oh, he's telling us that there's alien. No. He was saying that we would be better off because we would have a common enemy, and that's where our common ground would be, because it would unite everybody
Yeah.
in terms of, trying to preserve humanity itself. So maybe we should have aliens come down.
Right.
And that, it's true. It makes sense. And that's kind of the premise behind Independence Day.
Of course. Yeah.
And another great movie.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing. It's like, well, maybe we need an existential threat that's not going, maybe it could be a made up threat. I don't really care. Maybe the rich.
How about global warming?
Don't get
Could
me
that be
started
the threat? Because here's the thing. Again, I've said this a million times. I love science, but for me, growing up, one of my coworkers loves history, and he loves how this
bullshit history is.
Well, he doesn't understand that. It's funny because he looked really young, but he's 50, and I thought, holy cow, I thought you were in your 30s. But he's 50, and he's very intellectual. He's a very intelligent guy, but a lot of his views are programmed viewpoints that he's not so subjective on. He's just repeating what we were taught. And once you step back and realize, well, the person who's writing the history can say whatever they want.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
it depends on what part of the world you grew up in, and that's what you're told. I try to be objective, and that's what learning about math and science teaches you, is that you don't know what the answer is. So you have to be objective and only believe what you can prove and see, right? That's logical thinking.
Here's the question, though. How much of science is theoretical?
Well, that's a
And
division of it.
You base a lot of your theories and you base a lot of your
That's the first step.
viewpoints and world viewpoints on theory when you might not even know. And it could explain certain things, but then something new might come along all of a sudden and be like, oh, that just shattered our entire way of thinking for the last 50 years of something.
Yeah,
And
it
that's-
depends on what you're talking about, but science is doing experiments and gathering data that is truth, that are facts, that is truth and reality, right? So
what about though with the I'm going to always resort to the studies that are paid off and money is
that's
brought
not
up.
science, that's fraud.
It's still fraud, but it's
That's
still
fraud.
presented as truth, and people take it as truth, and
Well,
then
that's a
people
bigger
will
problem
run with
human,
it.
Yeah, that's human
And
flaw. That's what
so-
I have a big problem with that. We'll address that in just a minute. Well, my whole thing is that I think that if people, human beings as a society, as a being on the planet Earth, if we all took a step back and realized that we're an organism on the planet Earth that is part of an ecosystem.
Wrong, sir. We are a virus.
Well, I
No, I'm just
disagree. Yeah. Disagree. No, you're probably. That's a good point. And it's not only in. Is that in the Kingsman? It's the Kingsman movie. That's
No,
a really good
it's
movie.
in fucking Matrix.
Well, it's in the Matrix too.
no,
But
it's in the Matrix one.
Yeah.
It's when Morpheus, or when Morpheus is caught,
Yeah.
and he's sitting there
Agent
getting the truth
Smith.
serum, and
Yeah.
Smith is like, I tried classifying your species once, and I could come up with only one thing: a virus.
Yeah. Well, Samuel L. Jackson also says that in the Kingsman. That's the whole point of the first Kingsman. Have you seen that movie?
No.
It's a great movie. You got to watch it.
I don't. It's not on Prime Camp.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll get it to you. So, if we take a step back and realize that we're a species, an organism on the planet Earth that is part of an ecosystem, well, we have to start looking at ourselves as a virus that's destroying the environment, and start being more conscious and use our opposable thumbs.
Well,
start.
I think we are.
We are getting there.
doing things.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always people who are trying to cut corners and do stupid shit because they don't necessarily know or understand. But that's also the other thing. Like, there's a lot of things that we do today that we don't have full comprehension on. Like, we don't really know what carrying our cell phones in our tits are going to do,
Right.
or in our pockets. Like, we just don't know what that type of stuff is going to do. But
Sure.
try getting this out of people's hands, and it's going to be impossible. And then that's the same thing with like this vaping bullshit where
Yeah.
like 6 people died over the course of a few months.
I'm glad you brought that
And
up.
it's like-
Underlying medical conditions. If you find out those 6 people, if you look into them, some of them were older people, and all of them had an underlying medical condition.
Yeah,
So
but
why
it
aren't they
wasn't-
saying that on the news?
But it also wasn't just that. It was also going into an illegal market.
Yep.
And they're not saying that.
No.
And that's the main point, because a lot of the things, there's chemicals that are going into it, mainly pesticides and herbicides that are not allowed. And if you breathe them in, which you're vaping it in, that's going to cause severe issues with you. And those are the black market substances,
Yeah.
not the stuff that you can go to the store and pick up
But
and get
it's
perfectly
being
fine.
used to take away the rights of adults. Now, to play
Yeah,
a
and
devil's
that's a problem.
advocate here, we don't know what vaping is going to do, but they're also using this tiny black market aspect of it, skewing it and fake newsing it.
Oh, they're
And it's-
blowing it so out
Yeah,
of proportion
it's crazy.
that they're saying like, "Oh my God, vape it! If you vape, you're going to die." No, that's not. I mean, people have been vaping for years now,
Now all of a sudden,
and all of a sudden, because you can get THC type stuff, or you can get stuff that you can't necessarily get elsewhere, and so you got to resort to the black market goods to get this stuff, or you want it cheap or whatever, then it's going to cause problems, because there's chemicals and things that are in there that are going to be bad for you. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. That's the whole point with being back to our cell phones.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know what it's going to cause. Like the smart meters that they have for the electric company that always connect you to their
right.
tower or whatever the hell to read the meter and to kind of like figure out where they need power and this, that, and the other thing. You don't constantly need to send that information, but that signal is so strong that there's a lot of people who have bedrooms that are right near that meter that are actually like getting headaches, and they don't understand why. And then they either moved, or they move bedrooms or area or whatever it might be, and they're like, I don't know, my headache's gone. Now, whether that's has any truth to it, we don't know, just because we don't see the waves. We don't know how they interact with us. And yeah, they could be causing things, especially being constantly bombarded with all these different types of waves. We just don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if Wi-Fi 6 is going to be a problem, or 5G is going to be a problem. I mean, if you look online, you can see a lot of scare tactics and fear mongering on things, but is it true? I mean, we don't really know. And that's the thing. And there's no true test out there that's showing whether it's actually true or not. So I watched this one channel on YouTube called The Action Lab, I think it is. And he did a thing he did a phone test with, is your cell phone giving off radiation, or is your cell phone bad? And like some of the tests he did kind of showed that no, there's nothing really coming off your phone or whatnot. But it was skewed because, he didn't take in certain variables into account while he was doing that. So
like what?
I don't. You'd have to watch the video, because this came out a couple months ago. Gotcha. I was looking at it, and I was looking at it. I'm like, and I was actually looking at it as devil's advocate and going against, trying to say yes, there are issues with that, but that was like me playing in my mind. He already posted the video, and so I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, what happens when you're not necessarily true? Or you're because you don't show the right things that's actually happening. So there were certain things that I don't know if it was zeroed out or not, but it wasn't on the right aspect of where you're taking into account these other issues and these other underlying issues that you're playing it off saying, oh yeah, this isn't really a big deal. But when you look at it from a different angle, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't that doesn't add up. It's not right. So there's certain issues there and a couple of different problems. But I mean, overall, his content's great. I like it. And he breaks down a lot of scientific terms in scientific ways, whether it be like time travel or moving at the speed of light or things like that, or just fun experiments like can you drive over lava and crazy stuff like that. So it's a really good channel. Go check it out. He's got cool stuff. But yeah, that one video on there, that to me, it's like, well, yeah, if you're going to do certain tests, you need to take into account all of the variables and make sure all of the variables are accounted for and correct, because if you don't, then your information is going to be somewhat flawed, and you're going to be giving out sometimes the wrong information, whether there is true problems with cell phone or not. And I mean, that's with anything. There's so many things going on today. Like, we don't know what we're breathing in. We don't know what we're doing. And that could bring up global warming too. I mean, like, we don't really understand or know what we're doing on a full comprehensional thing, because we only know a small aspect of knowledge when it comes to certain things. Yes, could we have a real impact? Absolutely. But could the Earth also have safeguards in place that this is still in the normal realm of things? Mm-hmm. It's possible. We don't really know.
Yeah.
So, yes, we always have to err on the side of caution, but we just, until we can amass more knowledge and more understanding of how things work and that. Because once you answer one question, a lot of other questions now open up. So you close one door and you have 7 doors that open up. And so it's like this never-ending answering of how does this world work and the complete web of craziness that it can ensure.
Well, that's what is interesting to me that I've been thinking a lot lately, because you grow up being programmed by your environment and the people around you and what you're taught. And then once I was always an objective thinker. Like, to me, I'm like, who are these people? Why are they telling me this stuff?
And can I interject one thing right here? Because I don't know if this is the point you're going to make too, but why does school play off everything as this is fact? Mm-hmm. And this is the way it happens or happened.
Yeah.
And like, history is a big example. Like, they say, we all know what our history was when we grew up, but when new things come around, it's like, oh yeah, we'll just throw that in there. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, it's so conflicting that it's like, you're telling me what now? And I hate how they use the authoritative way and say, that's because it's in the book. That's what I said. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that, because it's like, I would much rather be like, this is what our current level of understanding is. But our knowledge is always enhancing and always growing. And I think if you said things like that, where it's like, it leaves room for growth and it leaves room for the chance to learn, the ability to learn, I think you would have a much, much better experience as a child learning and wanting to learn, because you're like, okay, there could be this, but then it also instills these things into you. Like you said, you're programmed. Mm-hmm. This is the way it was. This is what happened at X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Deal with it.
Yeah.
And this happens no matter what. But yet we all still come up with our own ideas and our own thoughts and our own perceptions of the world around us and the environment around us. But we're taught all the same things. So why can't we just say, look, this is our current level of understanding, but we're learning more each day, so this could change. Mm-hmm. This is our current acceptance, but things could change. And then they can, that might open up the doors for people, instead of being so rigid on their own ideas and their own ideology, which could be real, could be fake, and it's probably subjective. Yeah. Maybe we can open it up where now you have a different idea, I have a different idea, but guess what? We can still get along.
Well, it makes perfect sense, and that's the issue with what I have with a coworker, and I'm glad you brought that up. I sit next to my coworker, is very intelligent. He's 50. I think he just turned 51. But the views that he has on, let's say, communism, socialism, capitalism, systems that have previously existed in the world, his views are only what he was taught in school or saw a news clip of, and doesn't really have any either firsthand knowledge or in-depth knowledge about what those systems actually are. You always hear, "Oh, socialism is horrible," and we all know communism is horrible because we had to fight the communists, etc. But when you really look into what those systems are and the way that they're just structures of how people organize themselves into dispersing food and systems and monetary things, each one of them has a benefit and has a downfall. We have been programmed that, oh, communism is horrible and that word socialism is horrible. Well, we have a lot of things in this country that are socialist. Kind of. We have police, we have fire. That's kind of a socialist program. But when you hear the word socialism, it's always used to negatively attach to someone in a political party.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what about here's another big thing though too is like you'll hear dictatorship, you'll hear hierarchy,
or monarchy or patriarchy.
And what if that's, I mean, let's be real. If you look at the world around us, okay, we're in a republic state. The U.S. is a republic.
I don't know what that means.
It's not. It's partially democratic. But
I don't know what
it's
that
a republic.
means. Yeah.
And so there's monarchy, or there's a monarch, which king and queens rule, and then there's like lords and all. I mean, depending on how it works out. But then there's dictatorship, and the Middle East is much more apt to being under dictatorship. And then, you go to different parts of the world and it works for them in different ways. So we, as the world police, being the US, say, oh no, everybody needs our style of government. But that's not necessarily true because it might not work in other parts of the world. And we, as the US, need to understand that it's our way is not always the correct way. So the biggest one is Iraq. And what happened there, Saddam Hussein was a dictator. Right. Whether you want to say he was a good guy or not, I mean, that's beyond this, what I'm going to talk about. But if you looked at him during his reign, he held Iraq and all of the people together. There were many different factions within their faith and within their core and within the country itself. And when we came in there and made an uproar and, kind of took over and all this, now you have all of these different factions trying to step up for power. And so now you're having all of these problems going in. And you create this problem, and it's a real issue because, maybe the dictatorship works there. Or if you do want to change government, you have to do it in a different way than just coming in militaristically and causing an upheaval and then just kind of doing, like, just instating our rule of law over there, when now there's other people who are like, no, I want power. No, I want power. No, I want power. No, we want power. This, that. And then it's like there's this big problem. And that's something that we need to really pay attention to as well, too.
And for a person like me, that's global in geopolitics, right? Well, for a person like me who grew up loving like biology and science and things like that, and looking at how ecosystems work and looking at how your brain works and how plants grow and things like that. When we talk about structures like communism, socialism, dictatorship, to me, human beings are an organism that live on the planet Earth that are part of an ecosystem. And all of these little divisions of why we pick one person to be our leader, or that one person takes power, and whether they're an oppressive leader or whether you fight for democracy. The reason why we fight around the world is to give each individual person a right to choose what happens in their little ecosystem. That's fighting for democracy. Now, but how we do that is a
but here's the real
geopolitics.
Thing, here's the real thing, though. Is democracy going to be the best for each area of the world? Each area of the world is different on how they rose to where they are today.
Well, that's what's interesting to me is the psychology of the human mind, right? Why do some people need a leader, or some people get trapped in oppression and they have a dictator that just starves them, kills them, but why do some people need to look to one person to tell them how to run things? I don't know.
Yeah, but most people do, including even in the U.S. They look towards the leadership.
Yeah.
And then if something goes away or
Right.
weary or something, then they're like, oh, please fix this for us.
Yeah.
We don't know how to do it. We need you.
Well,
and
of
that's what
course.
that's exactly what's going on with this bullshit with the vaping.
Yep.
And they're like, politicians are probably getting off on the fact they're like, oh, we could create a new law and we could ban stuff because
Yeah, well-
the public wants it.
It's because it's easy. It's easier to just write a pen statement than to try to fix an important problem like the housing market, the banking system, healthcare.
Real
those are
actual
real
issues.
in-depth issues with variables that I'd have to actually do some work instead
not
of just
only that-
writing my pen.
Yeah, but not only that, I mean, when you're looking at these issues, they're so complex, and they're
complex.
so far in depth.
Exactly.
And it's like we were talking last week about AB5 in California, which is that gig workers law. And, I broke it down a lot, but it's like when you really peel back the layers to it, essentially it's legislators who, well, first of all, it's a lot of people who want regulation on Uber and Lyft because it disrupted their entire core business, i.e. taxi industry.
Yep.
And then unions want it because they're like, oh, fresh blood. And we can get them in the union. And which is a horrible thing right there, to have that type of mentality. Like, unions are meant to help the worker, not to be like, ooh, new blood. So that's a major issue right there. I'm not now unions. You could be for or against them, but when you have that mentality, it's not the right mentality because you're not looking out for the individual. And then you have the legislator looking at it and saying, ooh, we can gain $7 to $9 billion in tax revenue, but that's screwing the actual driver out of it because, they can't necessarily make their own schedule now. That's the whole point that's their whole model was, yeah, you can go online and offline whenever you want. It's free choice. You can work for any company you want. It doesn't matter. You do what we say, or like you do your rides, and that's cool. And then if you go to the other company, that's cool too. Everybody wins, and that's great. Yes, Uber and Lyft did exploit their drivers where they took pay cuts. If they just simply say, hey, you know what? We're gonna fix our wrong, and we're going to go back to original pay rate.
Right.
Everybody would be fine. Everyone would be okay because that pay rate's back there again. And so now they're trying to fight off AB5 every way they can, and it's crazy because it's this money grab, and that's the whole thing. Like, if you look at independent contractor, yes, you're your own boss. You're your own boss for your company or your business, or maybe it's a sole proprietorship, or however you have it set up. Whatever realm of industry you're in, it helps the little guy or even the big guy, with tax deductions and tax breaks. So then they can put more money investing into their company or doing better for themselves instead of, saying, oh, you're an employee. Here's the employee tax. Here's the, Medicare tax, the Medicaid tax, the state tax, the federal, all of that type of thing then now comes into a different effect. So it's like, all the drivers that said, oh, yeah, this is going to be great, they're probably going to be kicking themselves in the ass soon because they don't fully comprehend what it's really like, because they're looking at the surface of it. They're looking at the simplistic way, and they're not looking at the reality of everything. Their viewpoint is skewed, and the smoke screens are there. And then they have their eyes are peeled back in this, what they think is this going to be this utopia because somebody else painted that picture for them. But if they actually opened up their eyes and saw what was going on, they'd be like, oh, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't going to work out right. So it's this major issue, and it's you need to really look at the in-depth of things and figure out why. And then the big thing too, when it comes to this vaping issue, is the fact that they are not regulated and not taxed the same way as cigarettes. So when you have many people switching over from cigarettes to to vaping, you just took away a lot of the tax revenue.
Well, that's
and now
what-
states are like, oh my God, we needed this tax revenue because we taxed them so much because they have an addiction and they need to pay that tax.
That's what the
And-
intelligent dude who sits next to me at work said. He's like, look, don't fall for this vaping smoke screen crap. He's like, it's all about the money. They could tax ridiculous amounts on cigarettes. They knew that people were addicted, and they're taking advantage of those people's addiction and charging more in taxes than the product actually cost, which I thought that, didn't we have like the Boston Tea Party and certain
oh yeah,
things that taxation without representation? How is this allowed to happen where we have a tax on something that's higher than what the product actually is?
We have representation.
Oh,
we have
okay.
our legislative.
Well, it wasn't my representation. So,
No.
and again, I understand the need for taxes. I'm not a person
Oh,
who
yeah.
says we should not have taxes. Taxes pay for parks, they pay for roads, they pay for education.
Yeah, but here's the problem. There's certain things that you need to put in place for taxes.
Right.
But you also need to be very transparent on what these taxes are being used for. Because when I find out that you spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars on signs that are not DOT legal in the state of New York, and then you have a 1 million dollar whoopsie because of the new bridge that you fucked up on because you didn't put the middle initial, like that's
or
a
you
real
bought,
problem.
You bought new artwork for the art gallery rather than helping homeless programs or drug abuse program. Okay.
Yeah, but that art,
that's super important.
Everybody can go to that place and be like, oh, look at that art. It's so beautiful.
Right.
Even
But
the
it's
homeless
just so,
people can go
are
there
just
and be
so
like,
interesting to
so
me.
beautiful.
It's so interesting to me. And what I've really been thinking about, again, because I grew up during the Cold War and under the threat of a whole foreign entity just wiping us off the planet, all of the energy that is put into those systems, like we probably could have self-driving cars right now if we just focused on that rather than build something that can just wipe out humanity. Really,
but
like, let's get what are our priorities as human
Here's
beings?
the thing:
That's my thing.
you're kind of looking at it wrong because you're looking at a small aspect of technological advancement, and whether you want to say let's be peaceful or not, you need to have those just in case something happens. You need to have the ability to say, oh, we can make a laser weapon because if an asteroid comes this way and we could nudge it off its course just a little bit by shining a laser on it and reflecting it off or painting the side and using, these, and that's another thing too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of advancement that happened because of these militaristic advancements that we use every single day. I mean, look at GPS. GPS is a prime example of that. We use that every single day.
Right.
And so
that's
yes,
what makes
there's-
me sad about humanity is why
it
do we have to
shouldn't,
have
because-
awesome developments because of something that could destroy human life? I don't get it. Like,
but
couldn't
that's
we
the
just
thing. You're going to have these different realms, and it's how we use it ultimately.
Yeah.
So yes, you need to understand. You need to discover and then understand what these negative or bad things that could wipe out humanity are, and then you work towards not doing the bad side, but looking at the good side. So yes, you still need to do that because hey, what if we just said, let's build a nuclear bomb today? Like we didn't have the capabilities up until right now. And then say, let's make it. We wouldn't understand and know what it would do or comprehend what it could do.
Right.
Until, guess what? We have a conflict and we use it. Now we understand it.
Yeah.
And we can curtail it a little bit. So we're not going to cause that. So no, I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing, but look at nuclear power now. I mean, you have nuclear power for creating electricity.
Right.
And that's a very good thing. And then you advance that technology. So yes, we did have problems when we first started, like Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island.
Yeah.
And we did have Fukushima and all that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like you have this baseline, and then an outside variable that you didn't understand or see comes in, and realizes, oh, I need to do this better to take care of that. But then another outside force comes in.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing like when we started our podcast. You know, when we first bought the mics and we first hit record, how many times do we run into issues and unforeseen variables each time until we were able to smooth it out and say, wow, we actually have something that works right now.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we done that? And we're still continuing to do that because now we have multi-camera setup. So we have it from different angles where it goes and shows different people and different sides. So what if we didn't, experiment and try these different things, because now we understand, okay, this is the things we can't do. This is the things we can do. This is what's going to, but we still are only going to be as best as we are until the next variable comes into place.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the same thing. Like, we could be building up all of this arsenal of stuff, but we could be building it for a reason that we have yet to know yet. And you might look down the road and say, holy shit, thank God we did.
Well, you had me at first until building up the arsenal. You had very good points until you went to building up the arsenal.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. Like, we don't know. Maybe there is that alien civilization that's out there that says, oh, I want Earth.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Right.
Like, we just don't know.
Get that.
And that's the whole thing. But, there's a lot of advancements that the military and the military industrial complex, or whether you think they're good or bad, has helped humanity in other aspects.
Sure.
And again, they're also looking at the negative aspects and saying, okay, well, let's avoid doing that and let's work towards more peaceful or better way, so we don't let that happen, like biological weapons or certain things like that.
Well, that's what disparages me about.
We don't want to do that.
That's what disparages me about humanity, is that the need to want to destroy the other has birthed a lot of great technology, which makes me sad.
Yeah,
because
think
if
of
we
where we would be if we didn't have that.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. So all of the people who are a part of a system that are making things that can destroy, what if they have used that energy to solve the problems? Solve cancer, solve diseases, solve the energy crisis, solve pollution.
Yeah, but
there's so many things that those people are like, I'm going to build something that blows up and kills people, and I'm going to.
Yeah, but here's
if
the problem.
They use that ingenuity.
Okay, here's the issue though, that you're not looking at it with the full scale. If we didn't have those advancements, we might not even be as far as we are in the development of other things.
I think of it the opposite way. I think we would be much farther if we weren't fighting each other all the time and working together to solve all of our problems. That's my whole point.
That's not the truth. Like, we've had
humanity.
medical advancements due to military advancements.
That's my whole point that makes me sad.
But
so what if all of the people who are trying to, like, I'm trying to build some kind of.
Here's the thing. Hold on.
Yeah.
What if we would have never had the ability to figure that medical advancement out because we just didn't have, because we were looking at it from the wrong angle. We looked at it from the wrong perception. We didn't understand how we could get to that. But because we were looking at it from a different angle from the beginning, we were able to curtail and get beyond that issue and go to the next level.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. We can't look at something as, oh, that's just bad because it can kill a lot of people. Well, no shit. There's a lot of things that can kill people. A pencil can fucking kill somebody. So
we're not building pencils of mass destruction.
That's just a stupid way to look at it, because if you're just saying that, anything can be used as a weapon, okay? Mm-hmm. But you got to look at it and say, okay, well, yes, there's all of this there's military advancement, but you got to look back. Why? It started off same thing as always. It's a tribal thing.
Yeah.
You are part of that tribe. I'm part of this tribe. I have this and you're trying to get it from me. So I have to build up my defense. So if you come and try to wipe me out or wipe my family out or wipe my village out, we're prepared and we can take you out. Right. And that's exactly what it is. So yes, it's going to continue and continue and continue. And as the world got bigger, or I mean, well, technically, yes, as the world got bigger, meaning we can go further out and we run into different types of people and different cultures and different, then it's the tribes get bigger. And then all of a sudden now, as the world gets smaller, then it's changing. And that's the whole thing. Yes, we have militaries that have a lot of money that's spilled into it. That, yes, if we tried changing, or if we put money into other aspects, then yes, we could probably further things. But again, if we're not looking at it from a different, if maybe that angle needed to be from, or maybe that way needed to be from that angle in order to solve that problem. And if you looked at it the opposite angle, you would never find that. And that's the issue. It's like
I don't think that justifies having all of these military weapons.
I'm not saying it's justifiable, but I'm saying it's here. So you can't say, oh, we just, let's get rid of it all, because again,
that's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm
saying let's do something else with our opposable thumbs.
But what if we have the problem with what happened in Iraq, where you get rid of all this, and then all of a sudden people in power or other people are like, oh, now you're causing these issues, and then you have all these little factions and breakaways and issues, and it's like, well, let's keep peace and let's work towards more peace.
That's what I'm saying. It needs to be a shift in humanity, as a world view. As like, okay, so those tribes that you mentioned that tried to defend themselves, the only way that they survived is by working together with themselves. That's how they advanced. That's how we're all here. Not one single human being survived on their own. We have to work with other people.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. It's
so
the
right
tribe.
now, if we want to survive as a species in humanity and continue to live on the planet Earth, we have to start working together to save our planet rather than building weapons and continuing to fight each other. It's just not a valuable use of our time or intelligence.
First of all, it has to go back to the fact that you need to find common ground, and it's a mental issue versus a physical feat or a militaristic win per se. It's more the fact that you need to focus on, instead of creating division and finding these problems where, oh, you have this viewpoint, I don't like you, and I'm going to be at war with you. But these are people of power and position.
Yeah.
And then they're going to say, oh, well, this person's being oppressive. This person's doing this person, and they're building up more and more people to go against that other side. So now you have these two sides that are warring, creating conflicts and creating issues.
Yeah.
When instead, like I said, most of the time we all want the same things. It's just that we cherry pick these stupid little fucking differences and create this thing out of nothing, when in fact we could be like, oh, you like doing yoga. Yeah. I like doing that too. You want to go to yoga? Yeah, sure.
Well, also, just like the Matrix.
We need to but that's the thing. We need to come together. Yeah. And most people right now are finding these things, and that's the issue. Like, it doesn't, if everybody started coming together, those weapons would be null and void. Yeah. They would have been discovered. They would have been advanced. That's fine, whatever. But it doesn't matter at that point, because instead we're coming together and being cohesive. So
that's exactly my point.
That's the whole thing.
The interesting thing about it is that, just like in the Matrix, the people who are walking around in the Matrix don't know that they're in the Matrix. The people who are building these and are part of this system that continues to build things that are detrimental to human life on the planet Earth, they don't know that they're part of that system. They're in a system where it's their job, that they go to work, and their job is to design a specific part of the system, but they don't fully comprehend that they could be using their intellect and their time for something much better than. And again, I always, the problem I have with humanity in general is I live in like a fantasy Star Trek, the way life could possibly be, that's not in reality.
Well, come to reality. And
But the
that's
reality,
the thing.
the reality that there is someone out there who built something that could literally wipe out human existence on the planet terrifies me. It makes me very upset that this is the life that we live in, and we're still under
Yes,
threat
but
because of
the
it.
good thing is there's
When it
a
doesn't
lot of
have to be that
safeguards.
way.
There's a lot of safeguards in place. And again, today is the most safe that all of humanity has ever been. So
Subjectively, but do you know what I'm sure you know what the nuclear clock is.
yeah,
the
but it's
11th hour.
always going to be
Well, it's
around
always set at 5.
midnight.
Yeah, it's always 5.
always going to because
But it
there's
doesn't have-
always a possibility.
Yeah.
But there's always a possibility that you could get into an accident on the way home.
See,
from
those two
somewhere.
don't correlate with me because one of them is a person of choice. Like,
No,
how
yeah,
do we
but
get people?
How is that a person of choice? If you
s-
get behind your car and the tire falls off because somebody didn't tighten your lug
that's the
nut
risk
far
that
enough.
I took. Right.
That's the same. It's
So
the
how
same
do I
thing.
get
There's all
these people?
threats all over the place?
Saying that it's okay to have these, weapons that can destroy life on Earth because there's risk. That's not a valid argument. How do we get human
Well, why don't we
beings?
destroy cigarettes because they destroy health?
Right.
Why don't we destroy?
Right.
That's
But
the whole
I'm
thing.
not forcing. I don't have the ability with cigarettes. Is a great example. I'm not forcing you to smoke, right? And I can't force that cigarette to kill you. That's a choice that you're making.
But you're
someone
also
is
breathing
built-
out the same air that I have to breathe in,
get it.
and secondhand smoke is a real thing.
It is. I agree, and that's why I 100% agree with non-smoking in bars. I totally get it. I was a smoker for a long time, and I never had any problem with not smoking in bars. What I did have a problem with, and I said this before, is you can't discriminate against me because I'm a smoker. You need to build a special room for me where me and all the other smokers could go in. You can't make me stand out into
It's
the
called
cold.
going outside.
Yeah. Nope, you can't make me. That's discrimination. You can't make me stand in the cold because I smoke. That's a whole other issue.
Hold on. What about the pedophiles that are out there? And we have the sex offender lists and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. But are we discriminating against them because they usually have mental illness and issues like that? Or should we let them burn in their own little hell because of what they're doing?
I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because I have pretty liberal viewpoints on a lot of stuff, but those fucking people, I just cannot get my head around, and I don't want to say something on the recording, like I'm all like, oh, but
Hey,
those people, man, I don't know what to do with them. Can we? See, I can't say what I want to say.
one last thing.
I don't believe in hell, but if there is a hell, those people are going to burn in hell forever. Anything else, like I'm pretty lenient on don't lock people up for doing drugs. Find a better solution for them. But the pedophiles, man, I just can't.
All right. Well, one last thing. You know who wanted peace also? Hitler.
Oh, he did? He did,
No, you know that card from Cards Against Humanity. You know who else wanted
yeah,
blank?
yeah.
Hitler.
Oh, my good Lord.
Which I think we actually played that card last time we played.
The funniest one to me ever
Full
was Barbie.
fucking circle, baby.
The funniest one to me is next from Mattel. It's blank Barbie.
Yeah.
First kill Barbie.
Oh, that was good. But in all honesty, Oumuamua was voted off the island.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I'm moving.
And do you have a quote? Because we're
I
wrapping
do.
this sucker up.
All right.
But yeah, Oumuamua was voted off the island. I don't know where the hell we got off tangent in like the last quarter of our show, but that's okay because talking is always good.
Yeah. Well, how we got off tangent is because my overall general worldview is that I'm sick and tired of being in fear about other human beings who are building these problems when we don't have to do it.
But I'm not living in fear if they're there. It's the media that's portraying all of this. If you
But it's
cut
real.
your
The threat is real, Chris.
That's the thing. If you cut yourself
things
out,
exist.
yeah, but that's the thing. If you cut yourself out of that and you start surrounding yourself by travel posts or by this or that and the other thing that are more positive, you're gonna think a lot better for humanity.
I get it, but to me, like ignoring the problem and saying, "Oh,
Who
this
said
thing
it's
doesn't
ignoring
exist,"
it's not ignoring it. It's you're putting it into the perspective that it really deserves, and it's not a true existential threat that's going to be right there. That's imminent. That's a problem.
It is. It's imminent. It's happening right now.
Very far from that.
I don't think it is.
It's very far from that.
In fact, some of our world leaders right now seem to be in a pissing match with each other.
Well, there's always a pissing match.
Yeah, I don't. Why? Why? It's pointless. But I just wanted to use my voice to spread the word that if you're part of a system that is spreading violence, just stop it. Do something else. Go,
And
learn how to play the guitar.
I'm using my voice to say you better build more fucking weapons because I want a goddamn laser gun.
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot it at the moon and blow that fucker up.
Sharks with freaking laser beams.
Yes. I want sharks with laser beams attached to their freaking heads.
That's how these people think, Chris. That's how we get all this stuff because they think that way and there's no one who corrected them. All right, ready?
Yes. I hope it's an island reference.
This is probably really good for what we just talked about.
No, I want something that's going to be about...
I should point that existential finger right back at me. Ready? Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back at you. That's Friedrich Nietzsche. I never how do you pronounce Nietzsche?
Nietzsche? I think it's Nietzsche.
Nietzsche?
I think it's Nietzsche.
The cultured people all say it different.
Yes.
But that's a good one.
Friedrich Nietzsche.
So what if by me saying let's put all of our let's use our opposable thumbs for self-driving cars and technological advancements.
Hey, self-driving cars are going to kill people before they
monster.
Self-driving cars are going to kill people before because again it's that those variables we just don't foresee. And they're trying to work them out, but that's the whole thing. It's always going to be trial and error until you can exhaust all other options.
Yeah, for sure.
And other variables, and that's the main thing. And yeah, we can't be in this echo chamber saying, "Oh my God, this is going to happen," because holy shit, it's going to happen. I mean, you look at we're going to end on this point. I'm not trying to go any further, but. Like if you looked at doomsday preppers and shit hits the fan and all that craziness and you watch that stuff and you watched it from here to here to here to here to here and you were in this little echo chamber and then you go to Facebook pages and you go to this and that and the other thing. You seriously think that the world is going to end at any point, so you need to be prepared. And I mean, yeah, you should always be prepared for something. Just in anything, because depending on your area, there could be a natural disaster, there could be a variable you don't see, there could be something that goes wrong. But I mean, if you live in that echo chamber, that's going to become your life. You're going to be completely fearful that something is going to happen and you need to be prepared and you're going to have to use those skills and that, when in the reality of situations is, yes, anything could happen at any point. But most of the time and most likely, it's going to be status quo for the foreseeable future.
It's all going to be okay.
It's all going to be okay.
Where were you when I was in my 20s? Because I had paranoia all over the place.
Oh, I probably would have cut you a couple of times because I would have been like,
see, you're the exact person that I was afraid of in my 20s. Like, oh, I thought, man, we should talk about this another time because you're right, but I have to go prepare. I have to go get I need a tube to bury underground. That's gonna.
Dude, I would love to have a fucking
a
underground fortress or something. That would be fucking badass.
It'd be super fun.
I mean, it would just be cool because I'd be like, oh, I'm falling asleep, and then all of a sudden the asteroid hits, and it's like,
yeah.
I wake up one day and it's like fires are going off all over the place. Oh shit. I slept through it.
Yeah.
Good. I'm still alive.
Yep.
All right. On that note, everybody, though, we are ending now. The big takeaway, the real takeaway is, what do you do when you vote somebody off the island and you just don't tell them?
Yeah.
Think about that.
It's an awkward situation because
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't talk about that probably would put more things into perspective, at least in this certain circumstance with the Oumuamua.
Yeah.
But
be a positive influence for your kid. Understand that they're watching you. They're not listening to you. They're watching you. Be a positive influence for them. Don't talk bad about your kids to other people. Don't talk bad to your kid to them. I'm a real big advocate of like, hug your kid, love your kid. Don't tell if you tell your kid repeatedly and reinforce them that they're shitty, guess what? They become shitty.
And that's the same echo chamber that you're presenting when you say we need to stop doing these weapons of mass destruction with our fingers instead.
It's opposable thumb.
We still need to have those technological advancements because there's something that we can uncover that we just don't know because it's different variables yet.
Yeah.
So
those people who are using their
reality,
intelligence to try to build weapons, use it to try to solve our other problems like energy, housing.
All right.
Yeah.
We're ending because we already did our quote and we went way too long after our quote. So
I'll do another quote. How about that? We'll
all right.
finish
Yes.
on
We're
with
going
another
to,
quote.
yes.
All right. Let's find one because I really like doing the quotes and there's a lot of them. How about you have your way, I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, and the only way, it does not exist.
Hey, I like it. All right, guys. With that being said,
I was Aaron.
you were Aaron. I was Chris. Everybody enjoy.